My name is Kara, and a year ago I thought the worst thing that could ever happen to me had already happened. I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at 33. My husband, Nate, and I had been married for 6 years at that point. We didn't have kids yet, but we had been trying. He was my rock, or so I thought. When I got my diagnosis, I remember crying in his arms and saying, "I don't want to die." And he just held me and whispered, "You're not going to. I've got you." The first few months were brutal. Surgery, chemotherapy, hair loss, nausea. There were days I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I felt like my body had betrayed me. But I kept going, clinging to the love I thought was holding me up. At first, Nate was attentive. He drove me to appointments. He held my hand. He bought me books to read during infusions. But something changed about halfway through treatment. He started coming home later from work. He stopped asking how I was feeling. He acted irritated, like my illness was some inconvenience. And then, one night, he didn't come home at all. He said he'd fallen asleep at a coworker's place after drinks, that he didn't want to wake me. But the gut feeling I got? It stayed with me. Still, I fought for my life and tried not to let my mind spiral. When I was declared in remission, I cried tears of joy. My body was still fragile, but I had made it. I had beaten cancer, and I thought it meant we'd go back to normal. But 2 weeks later, Nate told me he wanted a divorce. He said, and I quote, "I just feel like we've grown apart." No explanation, no chance to work on it. Just done. I was shattered. I begged him to go to therapy with me. He refused, said he didn't want to waste more time, said he deserved to be happy. The next few months were a blur. I moved in with my sister temporarily. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I kept thinking, how could someone leave their wife right after she beats cancer? My friends told me he was trash, that I was better off, that maybe he couldn't handle the stress. I tried to believe them. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter why, that he was gone and I had to move on. But I never stopped wondering. Then, about a year later, I got my answer. I was at the pharmacy, picking up vitamins. I looked like a completely different woman. Short, curly hair coming back in, healthier weight, new clothes. I finally felt like I had myself back. As I waited in line, I heard a familiar voice behind me, laughing. I turned, and there was Nate, with a woman. She was tall, blonde, and visibly pregnant. Very pregnant. And Nate was rubbing her belly. He didn't see me, but I heard him say, "You sure you don't want to do one of those 3D ultrasounds? We can frame the picture next to the wedding photo." Wedding photo. My heart stopped. I stayed frozen until they walked away. Then I followed. Yes, I followed them. I needed answers. I wasn't going to sit with this mystery anymore. They walked to their car, my old car, the one Nate had insisted we sell during the divorce because we needed to split the assets evenly. I didn't even question it. I'd signed the paperwork like an idiot. I snapped a photo of the license plate. Then I left, hands shaking. That night, I did what I hadn't done in months. I went full digital detective. It wasn't hard. Her name was Rachel. She had a public baby registry, a wedding website, and even a TikTok. And that's where I found it. A video posted 8 months ago. She's in a white dress walking toward Nate, who's smiling like he won the lottery. The caption? "When you finally marry your soulmate, even if it took a few detours to get there." 8 months ago. That's 4 months after our divorce was finalized. But the comments? They told the real story. One friend wrote, "So glad you two are finally official after all these years. Y'all were meant to be." Another, "Can't believe you kept it quiet for so long. Love always wins." My vision blurred. I felt sick. They'd been together for years. And suddenly, so much made sense. The nights he came home late, the sudden coldness, the way he avoided touching me after chemo. He wasn't growing apart. He was already with someone else. And he didn't leave because he couldn't handle cancer. He left because he didn't want the inconvenience of a wife who wasn't fun anymore. He traded me in for a fresh start. I felt rage, pure, unfiltered rage, but also a kind of clarity. He wasn't worth one more second of grief. Still, I couldn't help myself. I took screenshots, the registry, the video, the comments. I printed them out and mailed them to his parents. Now, let me explain. His parents were always kind to me. They visited me in the hospital. His mom cried when I lost my hair. She called me her daughter. When we divorced, they said they didn't understand it either. That Nate had changed. I never told them the full story. So I did. I wrote a letter. Calm. Factual. No drama. I told them the timeline. I explained the overlap. I included the photo of the car, the video, the registry. I said, I just thought you deserved to know who your son really is. I didn't expect a response. But a month later, I got a letter back. Handwritten. From his mother. It said, Kara, I am so sorry. I had no idea. You were the best thing that ever happened to our son, and we will never forgive him for how he treated you. Please know you'll always be family to us. And congratulations on your recovery. Love, Linda. I cried. Not because I needed their validation, but because it finally felt like someone saw what I went through. It's been over a year now since that moment at the pharmacy. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, but it's nice to feel seen, to be touched gently, to laugh without fear. I also started volunteering at the cancer center where I got treatment. I talk to newly diagnosed women. I sit with them during chemo. I tell them the truth. That cancer doesn't just show you who you are. It shows you who everyone else is too. Sometimes I still see Nate pop up on social media. They post videos of their baby boy. He looks happy. But it's the curated kind of happy. The filtered kind. And I don't envy it. I don't miss him. Because now I know I didn't lose anything. He did. He lost a woman who loved him even when her body was falling apart. He lost someone who believed in him, trusted him, stood by him. And I lost a liar. That's not a loss. That's freedom. So if you're ever abandoned at your lowest, just remember, it's not always about you being too much. Sometimes it's about them being far too little. And trust me, what they leave behind, someone better will treasure. My husband introduced my affair partner to his boss 3 months after I left him. At the time, I thought it was the beginning of a disaster. Instead, it became the moment I realized I had misunderstood my husband completely. The affair had already destroyed my marriage. There isn't a nicer way to say it. There isn't a version of the story where I was the victim. There isn't a hidden detail that changes what happened. I was unhappy. I met Ryan. I made choices. And eventually, those choices ended a 14-year marriage. No one ever screamed, never threw things, never exposed me publicly. He simply asked one question the night everything came out. Do you love him? I remember sitting at the kitchen table unable to answer, because the truth was complicated. I thought I loved Ryan. I thought I knew what love was. Mostly I was chasing the feeling of being wanted. Noah looked at me for a long time, then nodded, and that was the end. The divorce moved surprisingly fast. No long legal battles, no ugly custody fights, no attempts to destroy each other. Just paperwork, signatures, and silence. Ryan and I officially started dating almost immediately afterward. Everyone expected us to be happy, including us. And for a while we were. The first few months felt exciting. New apartment, new routines, new life. It felt like proof that I'd made the right choice. Then reality arrived. The problem with building a relationship on excitement is that eventually excitement becomes normal life. The butterflies disappear, the stolen moments disappear, and you're left with actual compatibility. Ryan was ambitious, very ambitious. He talked constantly about promotions, career goals, networking, future plans. I admired that about him. At first. Eventually, it became exhausting. Every conversation seemed connected to work somehow. Every dinner became strategy. Every social event became an opportunity. Ryan wanted more. Always more. More money, more status, more recognition. Nothing was ever enough. One evening, he came home unusually excited. I got invited. Invited where? A leadership event. I nodded, not understanding why it mattered. Then he grinned. The CEO is going to be there. Suddenly, everything made sense. Ryan worked for a large regional company, the kind where senior leadership rarely interacted with regular employees. Getting access to executives was a big deal. Ryan spent the next week preparing. New suit, new haircut, practicing introductions, researching people. It became an obsession. The event was held at a hotel downtown. Employees and executives mingled for several hours. Ryan called me afterward, sounding disappointed. What happened? I never got the chance. The chance for what? To meet him. The frustration in his voice surprised me. Apparently, the CEO had spent most of the evening surrounded by directors and vice presidents. Ryan never got close enough to introduce himself. For the next several days, he complained about it constantly. Then something strange happened. The following Friday, he came home looking confused. Not angry, not upset, confused. You're never going to believe this. What? Ryan stared at me, then laughed. I met the CEO. I smiled. That's great. No. He shook his head. You don't understand. Then he told me the story. Earlier that afternoon, he'd been called into a conference room unexpectedly. He assumed he'd done something wrong. Maybe a project issue. Maybe a performance review. Instead, he walked inside and found 3 people sitting there. His department director, the CEO, and Noah. My stomach dropped immediately. Noah? Ryan nodded. He was sitting right there. I stared at him, completely lost. What was Noah doing there? Ryan looked equally confused. That's what I asked. The answer came a few seconds later. Noah and the CEO were friends, not business acquaintances, not professional contacts. Friends. Apparently, they'd known each other for years. Golf trips, family events, vacation stories, the kind of friendship that existed far outside the office. I sat there speechless, because Noah had never mentioned it. Not once. Not during our marriage. Not ever. Ryan continued. The CEO introduced him. My stomach tightened. What did he say? Ryan laughed again. The kind of laugh people use when they still can't process something. He said, Ryan, I'd like you to meet Noah. He tells me you're dating his ex-wife. I closed my eyes. Oh no. That's exactly what I thought. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Ryan continued. I expected it to be awful. I did too. Honestly, I expected worse. Humiliation, awkwardness, something, anything. Instead, Ryan described the exact opposite. Noah stood up, shook his hand, smiled, then said, It's nice to finally meet you. That was it. No sarcasm, no hostility, no passive-aggressive comments. Nothing. Just basic courtesy. Ryan looked genuinely unsettled while telling me. What's wrong? He leaned back on the couch. Nothing. Clearly something. Ryan stared at the ceiling, then said something I didn't expect. I think I wanted him to hate me. The sentence surprised me because I understood it immediately. Hatred would have been easier. Hatred would have made sense. Hatred would have fit the story we'd created in our heads. Instead, Noah was polite, professional, calm. That made everything harder. What happened after that? Ryan shrugged. We talked. About what? Work, mostly. The answer somehow felt impossible. Ryan explained that the CEO eventually left for another meeting, leaving the two of them alone for almost 20 minutes. 20 minutes, just Noah and Ryan, the husband, and the man who helped end his marriage. I couldn't imagine anything more uncomfortable. Yet according to Ryan, the conversation remained completely normal. Projects, career goals, industry trends, professional advice. At one point, Noah even recommended a certification program that could help Ryan advance. I stared at him. He did what? Ryan nodded. He spent 15 minutes helping me. The room felt strangely quiet, because suddenly neither of us knew what to do with that information. A week later, something even stranger happened. Ryan received a promotion. Not because of Noah, not directly, but the leadership team had noticed his work. And apparently the CEO remembered him from that meeting. The promotion came with a substantial raise, a larger office, more responsibility. Everything Ryan had been working toward. That night we celebrated at dinner. Halfway through the meal, I asked the question neither of us had addressed yet. Do you think Noah helped? Ryan considered it, then shook his head. No. The answer surprised me. He could have hurt me. Ryan took a sip of his drink. That would have been easier. I knew exactly what he meant. If Noah had badmouthed him, made accusations, created problems, everyone would have understood. Instead, Noah had done nothing. Nothing except behave like an adult. And somehow that carried more weight. Months passed. Life continued. Then, nearly a year later, I attended a charity event. One of those crowded networking dinners where everyone knows someone. Near the end of the evening, I saw Noah standing near the bar. We hadn't spoken in months. Part of me considered leaving. Instead, I walked over. The conversation started awkwardly, then gradually became comfortable. Eventually, I mentioned Ryan's promotion. Noah smiled. Good for him. The response felt genuine, which made me ask the question I'd been carrying for almost a year. Why were you nice to him? Noah looked confused. What do you mean? You had every reason not to be. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he laughed softly, not mockingly, just thoughtfully. Finally, he said, because I wasn't trying to win. I frowned. What? Noah looked out across the room, then back at me. When everything happened, I spent a few weeks angry. I nodded. That seemed normal. Then he continued. But eventually I realized something. I waited. The marriage was already over. The words hurt. Not because they were cruel, because they were true. Noah continued. Hurting him wasn't going to fix anything. Neither of us spoke. After a moment, he added, and helping him wasn't really helping him. I frowned. What does that mean? He smiled. It means I was helping myself. I still didn't understand. Noah shrugged. So, I didn't want the worst thing that happened to me to determine the kind of person I became afterward. The sentence stayed with me long after the conversation ended. Years later, it's still the thing I remember most. Not the affair, not the divorce, not the awkward meeting. That sentence, because for a long time I viewed Noah's behavior as strength, then as forgiveness. Eventually I realized it was something else entirely. Freedom. The kind that comes when someone stops letting other people's choices control their character. Ryan expected a confrontation. I expected a confrontation. The CEO probably expected one too. Instead, Noah introduced himself, shook a hand, had a conversation, and walked away. Not because he forgot what happened, not because it didn't hurt, but because he understood something the rest of us hadn't learned yet. You don't prove your worth by becoming the worst version of yourself when someone hurts you. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is refuse to become someone else at all. I knew something was wrong the moment he said it. "Hey, we're going out to dinner tomorrow," my husband said casually, like it was nothing. I didn't think much of it at first. Daniel liked planning things occasionally, especially when he thought we hadn't spent enough time together. "Where?" I asked. "Just a place downtown," he said. "I think you'll like it." There was something about the way he said it that made me pause. Too calm. Too deliberate. But I brushed it off. Because the truth was, I had much bigger things to worry about. For the past 5 months, I had been having an affair, and the man I was seeing had a wife. Ryan and I met through work. He was everything my husband wasn't. Confident, outgoing, exciting. The kind of person who made everything feel intense and alive. At first, it was just conversation. Then, flirting. Then something more. I knew he was married from the beginning. That should have stopped me. But it didn't. Because Ryan had an explanation ready for everything. "We're basically done," he told me. "We just haven't made it official yet." They're only together because of the house. I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted to. Because believing him made it easier to justify what I was doing. The affair escalated quickly. Late nights, hidden messages, excuses that got easier every time I used them. And the whole time I told myself Daniel had no idea. He never questioned me, never checked my phone, never seemed suspicious. If anything, he acted the same as always. Calm, quiet, predictable. The night before the dinner, Ryan texted me. "Wish I could see you tonight." I smiled at my phone like an idiot. "Tomorrow," I replied. "Busy tonight." "Your husband again?" he joked. I hesitated for a second. "Yeah. Won't be forever," he said. I wanted to believe that. I really did. The next evening, Daniel drove us to the restaurant. The entire ride felt strange. He didn't talk much, just kept his eyes on the road. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "Just thinking." Something about his tone made my stomach tighten, but I didn't push it. The restaurant was nice. Not overly fancy, but definitely more upscale than our usual places. When we walked in, the hostess smiled at Daniel like she recognized him. "Your table is ready," she said. That's when the unease really started to build. "You made a reservation?" I asked. Daniel nodded. "For 4. My heart skipped a beat. "For 4? Yeah." I felt a chill run through me. "Who else is coming?" Daniel looked at me briefly. "You'll see." They led us to a table in the back, and that's when I saw them, Ryan, and a woman sitting next to him. My entire body went numb. Ryan looked just as shocked as I felt. The woman next to him smiled politely. "Hi," she said. "You must be Daniel's wife." I couldn't speak. My brain was struggling to process what I was seeing. Daniel pulled out my chair like everything was normal. "Go ahead, sit," he said. I sat down slowly. Ryan wouldn't even look at me. The woman extended her hand. "I'm Emily," she said. "Ryan's wife." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I felt like I was going to be sick. "Nice to meet you," I managed to say. My voice didn't sound like my own. For a few minutes, the conversation was painfully normal. Emily talked about her job. Daniel asked questions. Ryan sat there in silence. I barely said anything. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might explode. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I looked at Daniel. "What is this?" He smiled slightly. "Dinner." "Don't do that," I said quietly. "You know what I mean." He leaned back in his chair. "I thought it would be good for everyone to meet." My stomach dropped. "Why?" Daniel looked at me calmly. "Because I think it's time we all stop pretending." The table went silent. Emily frowned slightly. "Pretending about what?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Daniel," he started, but Daniel cut him off. "About the fact that you and my wife have been sleeping together for the past 5 months." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Emily's face went completely still. "What?" she said. Ryan looked like he was about to pass out. "It's not," he started. "Don't," Daniel said calmly. "Just don't." Emily turned to Ryan. "Is that true?" Ryan didn't answer, and that was answer enough. The look on Emily's face changed instantly. Shock. Then anger. Then something deeper. Something broken. I couldn't breathe. "Daniel, please." But he ignored me. "I thought it would be better if everything came out in the open," he continued. Emily stood up suddenly. "Are you serious right now?" she said, her voice shaking. Ryan tried to grab her arm. "Emily, wait." She pulled away. "How long?" she demanded. Ryan didn't answer. "How long?" she repeated, louder this time. 5 months, he said quietly. Emily laughed bitterly. 5 months. Then she looked at me. I couldn't even meet her eyes. "You knew he was married?" she asked. I nodded slowly. That seemed to hurt her more than anything else. She shook her head. "Unbelievable." Daniel finally stood up. "I think we're done here." Emily grabbed her bag. "So are we," she said, looking at Ryan. And just like that, she walked away. Ryan hesitated for a moment before following her. He didn't even look back at me. I sat there in silence. My entire world felt like it was collapsing. "Why would you do that?" I whispered. Daniel looked at me calmly. "Because I wanted you to see it." "See what?" He met my eyes. That this wasn't some romantic escape. That it was just two people lying to the people who trusted them. Tears started to form in my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said. He nodded slightly. "I know. But that doesn't change anything." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "I filed for divorce last week." The words hit me harder than anything else that night. "You already decided?" Daniel nodded. The moment I found out, I felt like everything was slipping away. "Daniel, please." But he shook his head. "You didn't just cheat," he said quietly. "You chose someone else." He stood up. "And now you get to live with that choice." I never saw Ryan again after that night. And a year later, I still think about that dinner. Not because of the chaos, not because of the humiliation, but because of the moment I realized something I wish I had understood sooner. It was never about love. It was about escape. And by the time I saw the difference, it was already too late. I didn't realize how quickly a life could fall apart until he started counting. Not yelling, not arguing, just counting. And by the time he reached 10, everything was over. My husband Daniel and I had been married for 7 years. We had built a comfortable life together. A house, stable jobs, routine. Everything looked fine from the outside, but somewhere along the way, something changed. We stopped talking the way we used to. Stopped laughing. Stopped connecting. It wasn't dramatic. There was no big fight. Just a slow fade into something quiet and distant. And I convinced myself that was normal. that this is what long-term relationships turned into, until I met Ryan. Ryan worked at a company we partnered with occasionally. He was the opposite of Daniel in every way. Confident, charismatic, intense. He made everything feel exciting again. The first time we talked, he gave me his full attention in a way I hadn't felt in years. "You seem different," he told me once. "Like you're meant for more than this." That should have been a warning. Instead, it felt like validation. We started talking more, then messaging, then meeting outside of work, and eventually, it crossed the line. The affair lasted 4 months. 4 months of lies, of sneaking around, of pretending everything was normal at home. I told myself it was temporary, that I would figure things out eventually, that I wasn't really hurting anyone. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Daniel found out on a Tuesday night. I remember because everything about that night felt normal at first. We were sitting in the living room. The TV was on. I had my phone in my hand, texting Ryan. Daniel reached over suddenly and took it. My heart dropped. "Daniel?" But he was already reading. The silence that followed was unbearable. "How long?" he asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. 4 months, I admitted. There was no point in lying anymore. Daniel nodded slowly. Then he set the phone down on the table. "I see." That was it. No yelling, no anger, just those 2 words. And somehow, that made it worse. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't mean for it to—" He held up his hand. "Stop." I went quiet. Then he looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Not anger, not even sadness. Just clarity. "Call him," he said. My stomach dropped. "What?" "Call him." "Why?" "Because I want to hear it." My hands started shaking. "This isn't necessary." "Call him." His voice was still calm, but this time, there was something final in it. Something that told me I didn't have a choice. I picked up my phone with trembling hands and dialed Ryan's number. He answered almost immediately. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" I hesitated. Daniel watched me silently. "Yeah," I said. I need to talk to you." Ryan's tone shifted slightly. "What's going on?" Daniel leaned back in his chair. Put him on speaker. My heart was racing, but I did it. Ryan's voice filled the room. "Why are you on speaker?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't know how to explain what was happening. Daniel spoke instead. "This is her husband." Silence. Then Ryan's voice came back, tense. "Okay. I think we all know what this is about," Daniel said calmly. Ryan didn't respond. "I'm not interested in arguing," Daniel continued. "I just want to make something clear." My chest tightened. What was he doing? Then Daniel looked at me and said the words that would destroy everything. "I'm going to count to 10. My heart stopped. "What?" "You have 10 seconds to decide." "Decide what?" I whispered. "Who you're choosing." The room felt like it was collapsing around me. "Daniel, this isn't—" 1. My breath caught. He wasn't joking. He was actually doing it. 2. My mind started racing. This couldn't be real. 3. I looked at my phone. Ryan was still on the line. Silent. Waiting. 4. My chest tightened. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. 5. "Daniel, please." 6. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. 7. This was it. The moment everything came down to one choice. 8. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out because I didn't know what to say. 9. Tears filled my eyes. 10. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. That one word felt like a final verdict. Daniel, wait. But he shook his head. No. His voice was calm, steady, final. You had your chance. I just needed more time, I said desperately. But even as I said it, I knew how weak it sounded. Daniel looked at me. You had 4 months. That hit harder than anything else. I would have chosen you, I said. But it didn't sound convincing. Not even to me. Daniel noticed too. That's the problem, he said quietly. You didn't. He stood up. I've already talked to a lawyer. My world stopped. What? I found out 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. He had known for 2 weeks. And you didn't say anything? He shook his head. I was waiting to see if you'd choose me. The guilt hit me all at once. I am choosing you, I said quickly. But it was too late. He looked at me one last time. No, you didn't. Ryan hung up somewhere during all of that. I didn't even notice when, because nothing mattered anymore. That was the moment I realized something I wish I had understood sooner. It wasn't the cheating that ended my marriage. It was the hesitation. Because when it mattered most, I couldn't choose him. And 10 seconds was all it took for him to see the truth.